There is a lot of diversity in our schools these days. What this means is that there are going to be many, many different patterns of behaviors that teachers will need to become familiar with. You can't learn everything there is to know about every cultural group in your classroom or in your school. What you can have, though, is an attitude of openness and willingness to learn about the children who are in your schools. Children will tell you how the world looks to them.
So some of you are right.
By their behavior.
You hear voices,
by their responses to you in many, many different ways. And what teachers should do or could do is to hone their skills in observation, and also to do a little bit of reading and to talk with adults.
When we're talking about the term intercultural competence, it's kind of the ability to know how to interact with people who come from different language backgrounds and different cultural groups. I think a critical piece of intercultural competence is knowing enough about your own culture so that you understand yourself, because a lot of the differences between groups may not be explicit differences. But the better you are about learning what you value, how you communicate within your own group, the more sensitive and aware you may become about how other people interact within their own group. A really important piece in terms of understanding cultures is to recognize the diversity within cultures. I think one of the problems in the way teachers traditionally used to be taught about culture meant that teachers generalize and maybe stereotype the ways they expected certain children to behave. Whereas when anthropologists now look at cultures, they look at diversity within and not just across different ethnic groups. And so it's really important for teachers to be aware of the fact that there might be a lot of diversity within the group of children that you have in your classroom, even if they're all considered to be part of one culture or one ethnic group. And so in terms of teachers learning about this, I think it's important for them to learn about the child and the family and the community in which the child is interacting, rather than to buy into some of the previous lists that used to be provided for teachers as to, Latinos or Hispanics are this way, or African Americans are this way, or Asian children are this way. Being aware of the fact that there is a lot of diversity within particular ethnic groups and cultural groups.
Because culture is so important, and because students bring with them cultural differences to the classroom, it's so important for teachers, for ESL teachers, for bilingual teachers, any teacher working with linguistically and culturally diverse students, to be aware, not just to be aware of the cultural differences, but to be aware of the importance of valuing those different ways of doing things that students are bringing with them to the classroom. And it's very hard for a lot of teachers because culture is something we don't usually think about, and how culture defines who we are and defines how we process our environment, how we interact with others. But we have to base all of our teaching and to create in our classrooms an environment that not just is aware of cultural differences, but genuinely values the different ways that different cultures bring with them to the classroom. And so not to set aside the fact that some students may feel that it's immodest to show bare arms, for example, in a school setting, and to value that for what it's worth. And really, cultural diversity, to me as a teacher at least, is a source of great enrichment for everyone. It is so much more exciting to have different cultures represented in my classroom than to have just one or two cultures represented in my classroom.
And your turkey paper and a pencil. And then I'm going to count to 5 and see who's ready to put the mic forward. 1. Uh-oh. I didn't ask you to come over here. Gotcha. There's your listening manners. 2. Better. Thank you. 3. 4. And 5. 1. Just stop what you're doing right now. And I will ask you to help you find it, all right? Okay, table 4, come on over to the carpet. New, will you help Juan find his 4? So I thought we'd start with our turkey song. What do I have right here?
Turkey.
What is the word right here?
Turkey.
Turkey, let's spell it.
Turkey.
That spells turkey. Are you ready for our song?
Yes.
Here we go. I know a bird that goes gobble gobble and turkey is its name. Turkur, Tur. I wonder if this is a storybook or nonfiction that's telling us real things about turkeys. I think that's a better way to say that. What do you think? Is it a story? Is it fiction? Or is it real things about turkeys? Nonfiction. Nonfiction? Let's take a look and see what we can find out about turkeys. See if you're right. See if I'm right. Turkeys on the farm. Turkeys are farm animals. Most farm turkeys are large birds.
No, we
Yep.
need to do the thinging.
We need to give you a chance to color it. You're
And
right.
we need to label it.
We definitely need to label it. So let's get ready to do that.
And we need to write it.
Absolutely. So show me that you're ready to do that. What do first grade listeners look like when they are ready to work? Thank you. Labeling our drawing is going to help us have the words that we need to be able to write everything we want to say about turkeys today. So, having drawn our picture already, I looked at our book right here and I can see that it already has an illustration with labels in it for us. Look at this part of the turkey right here. What do you think that label might say? Well, right here where my finger is. I see it. I'm going to use a lowercase t. It's not going to be very interesting because I don't have any describing words yet. So I'm going to go back and do one more thing to help my writing be more exciting. I want to add a describing word to each one of these. What kind of a tail do you think turkeys have?
Colorful tail.
Ah, I like that word, colorful. Could you use another word instead of colorful?
Beautiful tail.
Pretty, beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For writing, it's time to get down to the important writing job. Are you ready? All right. First, I have to give my piece of writing, my describing piece of writing, a title. I think I'll tell about ice cream today.
Okay.
Is that what my plan is?
No.
No? All right, I guess I'm writing about pumpkins today. No? Santa Claus?
No.
What am I writing about today? What's my plan, Lupita?
Write about toys.
I'm writing about turkeys today, so what should my title be then?
The turkey.
Turkeys. This is the title, the name of my paragraph.
That's the name.
So I think I'm going to say turkeys are...
Pretty.
You want to say pretty?
Yeah.
All right, we can say turkeys are pretty. I know that you've had a busy day today, and it's time for you to show me what good writers do when they're writing. Remember, start with a topic sentence. You guys follow her with your eyes. Did she find topic sentences?
Yes.
Did you see that? Okay, so what are you going to do with the word first? Okay, I think that's a good idea. Good thing you read it again. Good for you. Say to everyone that I did see some hard work going on. I did see some careful spelling going on. And I can see that you had things to say about turkeys today. What I'm looking for today when we're sharing is people that use their writing plan, their picture that we labeled. I'm looking for people who use their writing plan, remembered to put a topic sentence, some details that tell more about what they're writing about, and a conclusion, so that when you finish your paragraph, you have a beginning, a middle, and an end to your paragraph.
But let me tell you about turkeys. First, turkeys have orange beaks. Next, they have soft feathers. Last, they have colorful tails. All in all, turkeys are so cool.
I liked your topic sentence. And I liked the details that you were telling about.
Diana, I noticed that you start reading and writing workshop in your first grade classroom almost at the very beginning of the year. I have first grade teachers telling me constantly, oh, you can't do reading and writing workshop in first grade. You know, they're not ready for it. How do you get them moving in this direction so early in the year?
I think with the concept that if they can say it, they can write it. And if they can write it, they can read it. And they see me modeling by reading a good book and doing some writing activity with it right away. And so they begin to see the connection between the reading and writing tasks early on. And I give them journals to begin with at the beginning of the year and encourage them right from day one to begin to respond in some way to whatever book that I'm reading with them or sharing in the classroom. And so I may do a read aloud right there on day one and then have them go back to their desks and think about a part of the book that they liked and just begin with a simple picture. And from there we begin to attach labels, and from there we begin to move into constructing complete sentences until finally at the end of the year they're able to write some pretty sophisticated responses in literature response journals, and in terms of their personal connection to whatever story has been read to them or that they've read themselves, or they'll make connections between stories and compare one story to another in terms of the reading workshop. In Writer's Workshop, we begin very early with interactive writing, and they once again connect that writing task to speech and being able to read, and they turn around and they begin to attempt and approximate in their journals as well the writing task. And we take the time to celebrate what they have written, and so they begin to see themselves as authors right away. And we just begin to add pieces of the writing process throughout the year until they are writing and publishing their own books for the classroom.
Talk a little bit about how you get them to revise, because that's very difficult for first graders. I've noticed you use a sample of their writing and really walk them through the process.
Absolutely, because quite often if you ask a first grader to revise without a lot of modeling going on, they'll take that piece of writing back to their desk and bring it back to you as a totally newly written piece. And so they need to see that the task that's being asked of them in revision is polishing the message of their writing. They're making their writing more clear, and it may be taking out a word or adding a word into the writing or moving words around to make their message more clear. And I quite often will ask the children if I may use a piece of their writing, and I'll duplicate it on sentence strips in a pocket chart and cut the sentences apart, and we'll use sentence strips to rearrange those sentences or lengthen them to make the message once again more clear. So they begin to see the revision process as not making a whole new piece of writing, but polishing what they had and making their meaning more clear.
So you actually introduce each stage of the writing process, and you model it and you practice it so that they truly understand what's involved in each step.
Absolutely. And we focus at the beginning on the pre-writing stage, getting ready to write, making a plan for writing. And for us, that planning stage is quite often drawing. And it gives them something concrete to respond to or to think about and then tell about in their writing. Quite often we'll label their illustrations as well, because that will also provide them a little word bank right on the paper in front of them from which to draw when they're writing. And also we look at taking those labels and then turning them into those complete sentences. So we begin with the idea of a topic sentence. And once we've established that idea of a topic sentence informing the reader of what the writer is going to be writing about, then we can go on and add some transitional words of first, next, and last. So by the end of the year, we will have moved through the topic sentence and supporting details.
Findings that has emerged very strongly from the cognitive psychology literature is the fact that learning involves building on students' prior knowledge. You could define learning, in fact, as linking up new information and skills with what the student already knows. And so that prior knowledge is a crucial aspect. We've got to take steps to bridge the gap between the student's background knowledge, their cultural knowledge, and what's happening in the classroom. That means that on a regular basis, students should be brainstorming about what they know about a particular topic. They should be bringing in what they've learned from their parents, what they've read from books in their first language. All of that is important. So it's not just a matter of transmitting a curriculum. We've got to link that curriculum with what students have in their heads. And that's a very different process than just filling out the blanks or clicking off the objectives that have been met. Learning is a two-way process. It's not just going from the teacher to the student. It's linking up what the student knows with what the teacher is trying to teach. An implication here is that students' first languages are important.
Today, teachers have to be much more concerned about the language skills that these students bring to classrooms, the background knowledge they bring to classrooms, the experiences.
It's interesting to have a class with kids from other countries because some kids have had very little formal schooling and some kids have had very rigorous academic training in the schools in their native language. So you have a wide variety of educational backgrounds. That added to the language barrier, it makes it a very interesting mix. I think that students in such a diverse population have a lot of support available to them because there are still students who speak their native language. They're seeing their culture in after-school activities. They're seeing their culture in the classroom. And I think that can be very helpful in making them more comfortable and helping ease the transition.
To be able to provide responsive instruction and meet the needs of these English learners presents a tremendous challenge to teachers. Because language and identity are so closely bound, and because identity is especially important, I think, to adolescents. They're trying to figure out who they really are. The special challenge teachers have is to build skills and competence, but at the same time honor the diversity. In honoring diversity, we have the opportunity to create some relevance and meaningful context for students to actually develop competence with the language. But it is going to take special work. It's going to take special attention.
Understanding a student's background as far as what support do they have at home and in what areas, how are their parents or guardians able to help them, and where might we also help their family, because the families want to support their students. They sometimes don't have the tools to be able to do that.
We mediate experience with language. That is, we think about, remember, translate, interpret what happens in our everyday lives with language. And since experience defines who we are, then language also defines who we are. When individuals and students come to the United States who have limited English proficiency, we can't fully appreciate who they are because they're not using their mother tongue. Language and identity.
For each of us, there is a system of knowledge that we learn in the socialization process growing up in our families. The rules of how to interact with people, rules that govern the way we look at the world. We are influenced, though, by the experiences we have had. You notice that when people interact with young children, they'll say, well, did you have a good time? Was that pretty? Isn't that nice? And all of that, all of these little interactions add up for children as a kind of framing of experiences. This includes values, knowledge, ways of framing experiences, ways of taking from experiences, which is to say, ways to learn. So our behaviors, our practices, the way we think, the way we feel, even how close we can stand to other people if we know them well, as opposed to not know them. How we see ourselves in relation to the others in our world, older than us, younger than us, same age, same background, etc., etc. All of that is a part of our culture.